This is Virtual Verities podcast.
Hey guys, just recording some bonus content to fill in the gaps for the holidays. Gonna try and keep these 10-minute explainers going on TikTok, YouTube, and maybe some other places. More sourced from articles I have on the blog. If you haven't checked it out, you can find it on themoloch.com or put in virtualveritypod.com. That seems to work sometimes. Still have to yell at my hosting provider. This video is based on my first and most popular article. It actually got cited in a few places about Ukraine's GISArta artillery targeting system. This is one of the adaptations Ukraine deployed early in the war. It helped them save ammunition and react incredibly quickly to Russian movement and basically let them put fire down on a target reportedly in under a minute, which in the context of what you'll see in the article is substantially faster than even the US Army. So I hope you enjoy. Throughout the summer of 2022, the US built M142 High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, HIMARS, established itself as a symbol of Ukraine's ability to strike back against building Russian momentum, perhaps even edging out at the time the Bayraktar TB2 as the meme weapon du jour in the heated social media war. While there's no denying that the HIMARS had a measurable impact, Ukrainian army artillery units have already been making use of a homegrown development that, in the long term, may make the biggest difference in the conflict's asymmetrical artillery duels. This app-based GISArta targeting system and the effects of its innovation may outlast that of any other tool seen in the conflict. After the first few weeks, there were calls from Ukraine for more advanced artillery systems, including any NATO standard 155 howitzers, multiple launch rocket systems, you'll see as abbreviated as MLRS, and self-propelled artillery pieces, such as Poland's famous AHS Crab, which has become an extremely popular piece in the months since. These calls were answered by several of its European neighbors, and famously by the US with, at the time, 16 of its HIMARS systems. The justification for this was that, after Russia's failed bid to capture Kiev, the war had entered a new phase that favored Russian military doctrine, which is, in short, hammer everything you can with the longest range, heaviest artillery at your disposal. Early in the war, it seemed that Russia had a limitless supply of artillery shells at their disposal. These attacks were often done with little consideration to civilian casualties or damage to non-military infrastructure. After bringing to bear an arsenal of both conventional and rocket artillery amassed since the beginning of the Cold War, it's unsurprising that the Ukrainian army's artillery corps would find itself so dramatically outgunned. Some reports from the Donbass claim that Russian artillery was dropping 40 rounds to each one fired by Ukraine in the first few months, and that Russia may be fielding up to 20 times the number of artillery systems at the time. The losses these tactics inflicted on Ukrainian defenders had been abominable, with estimates ranging between 100 to 200 soldiers killed daily in June of 2022. Another contributing factor to this had been Ukraine's previous losses in the war against pro-Russian forces since 2014. The 8 years prior to the full-scale invasion resulted in a significant reduction in what Ukraine had of its longest-range artillery. Famously, Ukraine's retreat in 2015 from Debaltseve forced them to leave a number of their heavy weapons behind. Many of these weapons were long-range artillery pieces left over from the Soviet Union, and it took Ukraine's infrastructure several years to develop any alternatives. It was only in October of 2021 that Ukraine was able to test its first domestically produced piece of 155 artillery, the self-propelled 2S-22 Bodana, which in the time since was famously used to retake Snake Island. While tests showed that the weapon is capable in combat and able to integrate into current NATO structures, at the start of the war, there had only been confirmed that there was one unit ever manufactured, though obviously there have been more since, and there's speculation that they had more than that one. Kramatorsk, where Bodana was developed, was close to the front line at the time, and has constantly been a target of some of the war's most horrific missile attacks. These more advanced systems that Ukraine was calling for are important because they require weapons with greater range for counter-battery operations. Without these more advanced NATO weapons, they would never have been able to close any sort of gap with a steadily advancing Russian army, which to this day seems to be regaining some of its momentum. Sophisticated long-range systems enable counterattacks at distances that Russia can't easily react to. Ukraine found itself in the position of being to go longer range, react quicker, and be more precise in their adversary. Thankfully, precision reaction time haven't been the problem. In the opening phases of the invasion, the world seemed genuinely shocked with the effectiveness of Ukraine's ability to withstand a much more powerful force. the Ukrainian army was able to lay down extremely effective, precise, and sudden fires with limited resources. A lot of this credit was uncritically given to NATO-provided AT systems such as the FGM-148 Javelin and Saab Bofors Dynamics NLAW missiles. While they certainly made a difference, Ukraine needed to coordinate an all-of-the-above solution involving these NATO weapons, the remaining conventional artillery, mortars, AT crews, and aerial strikes from medium-range drones. Such an effort will require a presumably sophisticated suite of software on par with those employed by the world's most advanced militaries. It just so happened that Ukraine had been working on an affordable answer to this since late 2014. An aspect of Ukraine's economic development that has gone largely understated in mainstream American press have been its outsourcing cultivating of engineers within its software and technology sectors. International giants Huawei, Magento, and Google all have a large presence in the country. It's reported that Israel's technology firms collectively hired between 15 and 17,000 Ukrainians prior to the invasion. The Ukrainian online tech hub, DOU.UA, reported an estimated 250,000 IT specialists in December of 2021 employed in the country. When Ukraine first engaged Russia and the Russian-backed separatists in 2014, the army found they faced a number of tactical and systemic issues, not just a shortage of weapons, but also inaccurate fire from dated artillery systems, expired maps, undertrained soldiers, and unreliable geospatial intelligence. Despite these challenges, by the next year, Ukraine's artillery corps had reformed their reputation. Revisiting the 2015 combat in Devaltseva, all reports indicate that UA's fire support was extremely effective and likely life-saving. It could be speculated that this was due to an early implementation of GISArta. In 2017, the League of Defense Enterprises of Ukraine was assembled to help coordinate the efforts of over 75 private manufacturers, defense contractors, and technology firms for the purpose of rapidly meeting the country's defense needs. Among the projects listed on their website was GISArta LLC. The company was alleged to be a small group of software developers with preemptive apologies for any butchering of his name, Yaroslav Sherstoyuk being the only one named. Sherstoyuk claimed that the idea was to develop a software for soldiers in the field that would function extremely similarly to a rideshare app. Uber's named in several of the paraphrase quotes that he gives, in order to centralize battlefield intelligence and produce targeting information. And the important thing was that it would have to run on as many devices as possible. How it works? Well, GISArta, shorthand for Geographic Information System of Artillery, used a bottom-up approach to target selection. Forward observers, unmanned aerial systems, and other scout elements can share their observations of an enemy target's location in real time over an encrypted network. These networks are multi-band and can utilize satellite, internet, and radio protocols across a number of devices readily available to all UA echelons. These are not unlike the radio systems utilized by NATO militaries. It allows for immediate verification of a target, and a kill decision can be made in record time at a command team's tactical operations center. The request for fire goes out to whatever element is most available. The ubiquity of GISArta's interfaces, being scalable down to an individual smartphone, means that the targeting assignment can be given to everything from the most sophisticated MLRS to the lowest tech ambush crews on Ukraine's territorial defense force. Commanders can essentially pick targets at will, as long as they're within their unit's capabilities. Simultaneous fires from multiple vectors can be placed if deemed necessary, providing something resembling a joint strike capability. Some publications have been reporting the system as a sort of wonder weapon, claiming that it could put shots on a target in under a minute with pinpoint accuracy. GISArta LLC claims a still record-breaking 2 meters of accuracy in as few of minutes. A more candid interview with Germany's Macworld made a more measured claim of a strike launch from 15 kilometers away, having a 1-minute duration from target acquisition to execution, not necessarily impact, with between 5 and 6 meters of accuracy, which still outperforms just about everything we've seen from the Russians at this point, which is definitely within standard for unguided NATO artillery. While not the miracle of optimistic or possibly propagandized reports, these results would still be tremendously impressive, as these distances typically have a margin of error of over 50 meters. 20 minutes would be considered notable, let alone less than 2. Macworld provides more technical details. A hardened notebook connected to the internet via satellite acts as a real-time map server containing all the relevant battlefield data. The information is fed to the server from forces in the field via any available protocol and implements 512-bit encryption. Essentially, these connections have been Starlink satellite systems for data transfer between servers, which Russia's electronic warfare tactics have proven ineffective against. Another thing that seems remarkable is at least these earliest implementations of GISArta utilize systems that can more or less be assembled with things you could buy on Amazon. Just being marginally aware of similar capabilities within NATO militaries, the idea that they could do this on such a budget is even more impressive. Anytime one examines warfare from a technology enthusiast perspective, there can be a tendency to overlook the fact that an effective weapon system still means it's become easier for a human being somewhere to kill another. There's no doubt that GISArta, even if the system's capabilities are exaggerated, provide Ukraine's army a particular edge. It's an edge that they need in a conflict where they are clearly not the aggressor. Logistical realities and ethical considerations mean that more accurate, quicker reacting artillery can serve UA in picking more effective targets, save them crucial ammunition, and limit the possibility of harming civilians. Ukraine could demonstrate with this system that their artillery doctrine is, in every way, opposed to that of their invaders. On a broader scope, it also demonstrated that a smaller, much less well-funded military is capable of maintaining technological systems for situational awareness and battlefield control that mimics many traits of far more expensive systems, such as the US military's Net Warrior and JBCP Joint Battle Command Platform, or Germany's Adler system. According to the League of Defense Companies of Ukraine, GISArta is already being eyed by the civilian sector for disaster reporting, seismic event monitoring, and a number of other non-warfare applications once the war with Russia is concluded. That said, in other conflicts, GISArta provides a framework that can empower combatants' coordination and mobilization, regardless of their motivations. Through the use of similar software and communications methods, atomized insurgents may be able to effectively coordinate as a large force for ambushes. In urban warfare among civilian populations, one could presume that there would be sufficiently available internet, enabling groups with none of the Ukrainian army's communications resources. Another understated implication might be brought about by the story of GISArta is the newly utilized value of Starlink satellites by the US Department of Defense because of their resistance to near-peer electronic warfare capabilities. While it's beyond a doubt that the donations by Starlink and SpaceX help Ukraine's military, Elon Musk has simultaneously solidified his brand in the international consciousness as a defense contractor, and given his behavior in the time since, I think this is a development that many might find controversial. While the internet has been bizarrely sanctifying images of Javelin launchers, Bayraktar drones, and HIMARS rocket platforms, it's the idea of GISArta that I find myself most curious about. While perhaps not the greatest feel for war porn, it's an apparent democratization of NATO-style command and control systems that seems like an extreme development for modern warfare.
Greetings, citizens of the world.
This is Virtual Verity.
We are anonymous.
It has cameras and sensors.
This is podcast.
But it turns out someone else may have been watching too.
And just like your phones and social media apps.
And although it was a piece of malicious ransomware on the surface, the attack wasn't really about money.
We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget.